Hello and welcome, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
It's going great. Yeah, it's like this is for some people it's the back to school week. I've been seeing pictures on Facebook and various different places, so that's super exciting. And let's see.
That is exciting.
Gonna share my screen, so hopefully you can see it. Yeah,
Oh, like we are live now, so that's great.
fabulous. Well, we are back with our friend Chris. So for many of you who have gone to conferences, you've got to see Chris a lot this summer.
Yeah, we definitely went to a lot of conferences and we got more coming the rest of this year.
Well, I'm excited for you. We'll get a little bit of behind the scenes, about my task LMS and how some of that started. But for those of you who are here, we're going to be talking about streamlined training for accounting and tax firms. That's something that's difficult. Many of us struggle to onboard team members when we can find them. We struggle to make use of that time wisely. So we're grateful to have a tool to be able to help us with providing that kind of training that our team members need in order to get them up to speed. So Heather and I are your host. It's
Yes,
always a fun thing.
it is a fun thing. Super excited to be here. Super excited to have our good friend Chris here with us. Chris, we've been hanging out with Chris for a couple years now, and I just love learning about what he and the team over at My Task LMS has going on. But for those of you that don't know me, which most of the people I'm seeing in the chat are the attendees, I do know. But if I haven't met you yet, I'm Heather Satterley, and I am currently the Director of Education and Media at Woodard. I'm also a CPA. I'm also the co-founder of the Happy Hour with Liz and Heather, and my career has really been focused and making working smarter, not harder, and that's really where my passion lies. So super excited to be here to see lots of our longtime attendees joining us today. So thanks for hanging out with us today.
I love that. And, I love hanging out with you, Heather. I always do. So, anytime that I can have a gathering with you and friends, then I am in, count me in. And, what I get to do in my daytime is I make training for a lot of the different apps that we see in the accounting space. And it's something that makes me very happy. So I enjoy it very, very much. And Chris, welcome. So, Chief of Operations. So, 12 years at the firm. You want to go ahead and tell us just a little bit more about that and my task?
Yeah. So our firm, we've got close to 50 employees in about 3 different locations. That's actually kind of the reason why we built this training platform was because back during COVID, we were growing and acquiring other firms, and we just got to where we couldn't sustain having our best managers sitting down for days on end with the new people coming in and knowing whether it was going to work or not down the road. Um, so that's where we had come in and built this training platform to basically take that and make it be more of a 15-minute nightly review for the trainer, so they're not having to sit hand in hand with them. So yeah, I've been with the firm for 12 years and grown from it because I came on as a bookkeeper going through the process, um, and now we're to the point where we've got our own training platform going through this process.
I love that.
I love that, Chris. So, listen, I don't love that.
It feels like it's this relationship of being able to take the firm needs and blending that with training to be able to come up with a system to say, here's the accounting principles, yes, the way that we apply them to different clients can be tailored, but the overall, how do you handle a client in a situation of X? Those are the kinds of things that you get inside of my task. And then the time that is spent with that employee for the client is then specific on what it is that's maybe that client needs that's maybe outside of the norm. But otherwise, the accounting principles and how you manage the client information, that's really where my task LMS shines.
Absolutely. And I think, when I'm working with my clients to talk about process and training and standardizing all their processes, we always talk about that there's two pillars to that, or not two pillars, but there's two things that go side by side. There's the standardized process, which is firm wide, right? So
Hmm.
that's the what you're doing. And then there's the SOP, right? Your standard operating procedures, or the, per client, which about my task LMS is that you actually cover both. Like, you're not just talking about how you do it, but then you're digging into the specifics of it. And of course, for each client, there's going to be little nuances that
Yep.
are typically, captured elsewhere. But I just love the way you've designed it, because you not only talk about the technology, but then you talk about the process that's unique to the firm, and how to actually do that, the work paper to technology reconciliation, as it were. I love, love, love that. So, and that's very unique to what you've built.
I agree. I agree.
But we
Well,
need to be quiet because we've got to say thank yous.
absolutely. And I think, Heather, I might have lost you just a little bit there. So I'll say thank you to our sponsors of 2025, and thank you to our champagne level sponsor, Zero. We've had a lot of fun this year getting to know our Zero friends and also doing some Zero training. And we'll talk about some more of that soon. But um, let's just dive in. And I always am a fan of the drinks. For the last 2 weeks, I've been on vacation and I've enjoyed way more drinking than normal. But this is a nice way to come back home. So, nice learning madness margarita. Well, so Chris, I will say to you, would you like me to turn over controls so that way you can click through the slides, or do you just want to tell me where to click and when to click until you get to your demo?
I would say you're probably good clicking there. I know we've got a couple polls, and I think once we got through the polls, we were going to jump into the actual sharing the screen side.
I love that. Okay, so with the polls, so let's talk about the slide for a second, and then I'll launch those polls.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. So, welcome to your learning management system, training and assessment and skills and knowledge. So, this training reimagined, I think that part of our questions here are, what solutions are you using? So, what general ledger software do you use? So, I'm watching the poll live right now, and there's a whole lot of QuickBooks in action.
Yeah, and I
So,
I think that's kind of the norm nowadays of a lot of people being on QuickBooks, but then I know, we've talked the past year about a lot of them jumping to the zero side as well.
Right now I see a couple saying that they're using something other than Zero, QuickBooks Sage, or Microsoft Dynamics. Yeah, I would definitely say throw it into chat. I'm not watching chat at the moment, but I'm wondering what is it that you're using? Because there are some newer platforms that are out there. And are you on one of those, or are you doing something just completely different? Love to hear that. And then there's a second question there. So, what tax software do you use? For those of you who are not a tax firm, NA would be the correct answer there. I would be one of those. And then, we've got some questions about the tax software, and I will count us down because I would say most everyone has participated. So I'll count us down: five, four, three, two, and one. So our overwhelming response is QuickBooks. Most of you are using QuickBooks. And as far as the tax software, I would say many of you said something other than Intuit Pro Connect Tax or
Mhm.
Drake tax. Not a single person said Intuit Pro Series.
Right. So it looks like most people are moving. For sure. So that's great. It looks like we got CCH Access in the chat, Tax
Yep.
Cycle for tax software, which is a Canadian product. So thanks, Tiffany, for that, representing our Canadian attendees. So that's fantastic. So really good. I mean, Liz and I, we have throughout my entire career, I was very QuickBooks focused, but we're actually dipping our toe into Zero and we're really excited about it. So I actually went to the Zero Roadshow last week and I'm going again in Austin. I'm going to the Zero Roadshow this weekend in Chicago. And it's really fun to see. I've been seeing some of our viewers there, which has been really fun.
Well, lots of great information. And let me see, I'm going to go ahead and move us through. So, team training resources, loss of time, loss of resources, loss of productivity. I mean, this is describing what most firms go through whenever they're training. We're training somebody because we need them to help to come in to do the job because we're probably in a spot where we're already feeling behind. And so to train somebody just means that you're often getting even further behind because you're stopping your productivity in order to get somebody up to speed.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I mean, in the case like I was talking about with our firm, we were running into where the manager would be sitting with a new hire, let's say for 3 to 4 days, and then basically putting that new hire to busy work because they got behind on their own work. So it takes a lot of resources to go through that old like traditional way, and that's why we had created it this way to where that manager no longer has to be sitting with them during that whole entire time. They can do a nightly review to see where they're at and how they're doing. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, the trainee can go through the process in the system without getting stuck in the process.
And I think that, one of the biggest things that I would say to firms that are here that maybe are not large and you're like, well, maybe this doesn't apply to me. I would say when you are hiring anytime that you are away from the task that you would normally be doing, it is a drain on your resources. And, I know for myself, whenever I hire, it's an expensive process. That person is going to come into the firm. We don't know each other yet, and I don't even know their skill set. So I feel like so much of the time is trying to learn each other that we miss some of the specifics in the tasks. So this really takes the emphasis and puts it on the training and what will they be doing as opposed to, the water cooler talk. You're going to do that anyway. But you want to know, are they skilled at the job? And that's going to actually help to drive the relationship a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
So let's explore my task.
Yeah. So I think at this point, we probably just share screen, right, Liz?
Yeah, so I will stop sharing
Ye-
and then make sure, Chris, that you are able to share.
Yeah, I just sent that request.
And then Heather, do you see that request?
yes, I do.
Fabulous.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We're all good to go.
Alrighty. So, just to give everybody a bit of the background of the system for anybody that hasn't seen it before. So like Liz was talking, a new hire is where this system kind of fits best, but you can definitely have it for even current staff, whether that's staff that's kind of running behind on production or just someone that needs kind of some upskilling and training. Um, from the accounting side, it's about a 2 to 2.5 week course where they are going to go through some basic accounting. going through almost like an accounting 101 type course. And then they are going to move on to a software specific side where they are going to do 12 months of accounting data in one of those systems, where we're walking through with them at the beginning the processes of how to efficiently get the monthly financial done. And then as they progress through, they're going to be taking assessment tests based on their financials. But through it all, they're going to be doing quarterly returns, sales tax returns, the year-end information like PUCC and 2% Health. And they just see a range of different items across the year. In April, for instance, they're dealing with financed equipment and financed vehicles, and they have to do amortization schedules. So from the accounting side, like I said, you can expect that their time is about this 2 to 2.5 week time frame. And if we were to have someone come onto our firm, that's the process, is that they are in this system during that time frame, and they don't actually touch a client until they've gone through here, because we're basically wanting to make sure that they can get through the processes. Things like the pre-employment tests and interviews, it helps us verify that the person can get through it, but this kind of certifies that they can actually do it. Because we have run into times where, people say that they've got years of experience and then they can't get through a basic financial processing. From the tax side, it's about a week to a week and a half, where we're not necessarily teaching tax principle, but we're trying to show how to efficiently do the tax return in that type of software. So they're going to be doing a lot of different returns through CCH Access, Drake, Lacert, ProConnect, Pro Series, or UltraTax. You can choose which path you want them to go through. But they're going to be doing an 1120S, a 1065, 1120, a simple 1040, a more complex 1040, and then even going into advanced tax issues. So basically things that happened in our office that questions got asked more than once, or other offices even sending requests to us of creating videos. We've created content on how to deal with those issues. And this area is kind of where a lot of firms have used for their current staff, to basically use as a reference point as they go through the tax season. I'm going to dive a little bit into the accounting side for you guys so you can see what it all looks like. From the accounting side perspective, right now the softwares in there are Accounting CS, QuickBooks Online, and QuickBooks Desktop, and Xero. And then Liz, did someone ask a question there?
Yeah, so there was a question from Ken, and he was saying, how many hours a day are the trainees spending inside of the learning system? And my answer was, you can kind of structure it depending on what you want them to learn, but I thought I would ask you.
Yeah. So like in the case of the accounting training, if it was a new hire, that that new hire would be working in this course for that full 8 hours, that first 2 to 2.5 weeks, because they are going to be processing that 12 months of data. Now, we have had firms where they've put current staff through it, and obviously current staff can't sit and do 8 hours a day because they have their workload that they're dealing with. So a lot of times firms will do like an hour a day or 5 hours on a Friday, and it'll take longer than that 2-week period because they're not doing it 8 hours a day, but they will probably hear it faster. They'll probably get through that processing faster than someone that's like new coming on. But just to go kind of through the course in a little bit of detail for you guys. So like I was saying, the very beginning of this course for the accounting side is a accounting 101 type of course. for the first 4 to 6 hours of it, they're going to be going through debits, credits, financial statements, 1099s, and a basic payroll understanding. So that first 4 to 6 hours, they're going through 000 all the way to 100. And in those sections, there's videos as well as assessment tests, and also some PowerPoints in that process also. So with those sections, it's more walking through information with them and then them taking assessment tests, kind of almost like it was a class that they were going through. Once they complete through that though, it would unlock 101 for the software that you're wanting them to go through. I'll go ahead and use QuickBooks Online as the example. So when we go into there, the very start of it is actually showing them how to create a client in QuickBooks Online, because they would take their business client interview form that they have for this Pinnacle Auto client and actually create the file in there. Some firms prefer that the trainer creates the file for them, and that's fine, and they would just move on to the next step. But within that next step, they're actually going to go through importing the chart of accounts and also adding accounts manually. So within this, we're showing them step-by-step processes of how to go through that process. But we're also giving in the files section those chart of accounts for them to be able to download out and then import in, as well as do the manual account adding of around 7 different accounts. So with each of these processes, we're really trying to go through a process of giving them a video, showing them the process, and then having them go and do that process. And with those videos, we are using some of the actual data that they're going to be processing with so that they have a frame of reference. David, your question on frequently updating the training. So that is something that we really make sure that it is getting updated. QuickBooks Online is obviously the biggest culprit right now because of them having the new layouts coming through. And what I will say there is that we are constantly updating the system. So these videos, we know that the new layout for QuickBooks Online is going to be fully implemented across all clients by October 1st. So those videos will be updated to that new layout by that point. So the trainees will know exactly where to go for the processes. Right now, we're kind of in a phase where we can't do those new videos until they've done it across the board for everyone, because we don't want to put those new videos in and someone create a client and it's still in the old layout. But we are updating whenever there's an important update in the system. And that goes for QuickBooks Online, but it goes across the board for the other softwares too. Some softwares, you're not really having to update as much because they aren't putting new updates in. But you know, something like QuickBooks Online, especially right now, it is constantly changing. And so we're really keeping an eye on that and putting the new content in as it occurs. But just so you can see from here, once they get that file built in there, we give them processing notes and source documents that they're going to be doing the actual information on in the system. We're giving them key bits of information in these processing notes because we're basically wanting to verify, are they actually looking through the information or are they skipping past it? So if they skip past this without reading it, they're probably going to miss questions on the test later. So it's really trying to catch that they're actually going to look through everything. So that way, when they actually get to doing the work, they're not going to skip past certain items. The source documents, we're giving them each month a bank statement, check stubs with the deposits written on them, so they can do checks in transit and deposits in transit, a sales journal. So each month they'll do a journal entry for the sales, as well as doing a sales tax return each month. And a small accounts payable for this Snap-on Tools vendor. So they'll be entering bills and bill payments. Like I was saying earlier, with each of these steps, we're showing how to do that step in this month of January processing, because we want to make sure that they are doing the processing right, but also doing it in an efficient order to where they're not just hopping around from item to item, and being inefficient on the time. So we're really trying to make sure that they get everything entered in and then get the bank feeds cleared out, and then move on to the reconciliation once they've got everything entered, and then wrap it up with the journal entries before they get into the financials. The one thing that I do want to point out from like the bank feed side, so obviously it's a fake client. They're not going to be able to do a live bank feed connection. We show them how to connect the account, but then we give them in the files section CSV files that they're going to manually import in. So that way they can still do the bank feed connection. So they're going to go in and get that in the system. They will go through adding and matching transactions in the bank feed. And we specifically talk in there of verifying that the matches actually make sense. We do throw some curveballs at them because one of the bills, for instance, is $75, and there are charges for $75 to other vendors that'll make it show up as a match, and they have to understand that that doesn't correlate. They have to add it as a separate transaction. In terms of the deposit side, we talk with them of if this was an accounts receivable client, that they're not just adding all the deposits in and potentially throwing off someone's accounts receivable balance or doubling up their sales. And then once they get through all of their different entry, one of the big things that we talk through with them, we go through creating the management report, and we go through reviewing the financial statements. And we're going through it so that way when it's being handed off to a manager, it's not being handed off with a bunch of negative balances on the balance sheet and a bunch of wrong information in the processing. So we're going from the perspective of talking through with them everything to be looking out for on the balance sheet side, things to look out for on the profit and loss, and then to do a final review of the general ledger to make sure that all of the transactions make sense in where they're coded to. And once they do get that January information wrapped up, they then are going to take their assessment test based on the accounting data. The wrong answers in this test are wrong for a reason almost all of the time. So for instance, with the net property and equipment, if they answered 4,500, they added the asset in, but they didn't add depreciation. If they answered 4125, they added the asset in, they added depreciation, but they didn't elect out of bonus depreciation. And if they answered 0, there's two things that could be going on there. They could have created the payable in the system, but put it as an expense, or they could have not entered the payable for the equipment at all. And what we did for you as a trainer is that you have the trainer guide answer key, where you get what the financial statements are supposed to look like, what the sales tax return is supposed to look like, and also an answer key of all of the tests with those reasons why they're wrong next to it. So basically, from the trainer's perspective, that 15-minute nightly review that I'm talking about is looking into where they're at and how they're doing, and then looking at their tests to see what they got right, what they got wrong. Um, Typically, we'll look at the tests before we look at the financial statements, because that will help us see the specific issues that'll be going on those financials. So that kind of gives just a basic knowledge of going through that process. They can pass this test by missing up to 2 questions. And so that's where it really becomes that trainer's role of following up with them on those questions that they do miss. Because since they're doing 12 months of processing, if they don't go back and fix those couple items, it's going to affect the future financials.
One of the things I feel like you've done such a great job of is testing the critical thinking ability of these new hires. Most of the work that we do is siloed. So they're going to be on their own most of the time working. That's the kind of environment this training has created. They are on their own. They're given a set of information. And then how do they apply it? You're even giving them guide rails of like, here's how you apply it. Here's what you need to do. Now, can they go and follow through with it? So I think that part of understanding your new hire's ability is something that it takes a very long time to understand whenever you're doing it from a traditional bringing in a new hire, walking them through, talking through, making sure that they understand. Some people in our profession aren't super social, so they get anxiety just from having that person looking over their shoulder the entire time. So it's not a really good test. Where this is actually putting them into a scenario of, here's the job, you're going to be independently working. Can you independently answer these questions and then be able to go through the results of what were they thinking? How did they answer it? Did they just try to work through the test as fast as possible? Or
Yep.
was there logic to the way that they answered? And that can be corrected. That can be,
It,
refocused.
it also gives you insight into their work ethic. It gives you
Mhm.
insight into, what their work culture is, and does it align with the culture of the firm. So I think there's a lot of takeaways that can come from that. There was a question from Yvonne who was
Yep.
asking, does the new hire see their scores as well?
Yep. So from their side, they see like what I'm currently seeing of if they've passed or failed the test and what their score was, and it will show them what they got right and it will show them what they got wrong, but it is not going to tell them what the correct answer is on the ones that they got wrong. Because if they do fail, it will basically have them go back into the test to retake once they've done their fixes.
And you
So,
can guide them because you tell them why they got, because you have behind the scenes, you can see exactly why they got it wrong.
yep,
So there's coaching opportunity, which is amazing.
yep. And then the other side to it too, what you were just kind of talking about of people rushing through and just attempting to take the tests, you can be able to see from the trainer side if people are attempting to just take the test and rush through, because it
Mhm.
shows you their number of attempts. It
Mhm.
shows you how quick they were going through the test. So you can see if they were going a minute to 2 minutes apart. And you can see how they scored on every single attempt. So you can see if they're kind of just guessing at the process or actually going back and fixing the stuff that they're going through. And David, your question about the new hires been terminated after testing, I would say yes, there are definite people, because we have run into people before where on some firms they have attempted to just go through by taking the tests. So those type of people, they have tended to let go, because if the person is going to just try to get by taking the test and not actually do the work in the system, those firms aren't wanting to hire a person that's like trying to skip corners on that side of things. We even have technically in our system, an unintended thing that came out of this is if they can't get through this accounting 101 by the end of day 4, they're not the right fit. They may understand accounting principles, but they can't get to the finished product. So if they're not finished with 101 by the end of day 4, or at least into March processing, that is normally our cutoff point. We've had times where we've made that exception of like saying that maybe there was a reason why they're going slow through there, but a lot of times when we make that exception is when a month down the road we're like, yeah, we shouldn't have made that exception.
I think those benchmarks are very important. And because you're testing a lot of people, you're able to see trends. And so, I myself, I have not gone through the QuickBooks version that you're showing here, but Heather and I have been through the Zero training, and it is very well thought out. Whenever I want to advance to the next section, it prompts me correctly. Whenever there's time to go get a file, I know where to get the file. So it's laid out in a way that is very user friendly. And I think that it does require you to have some ability to figure things out, but there's videos that show you here's where the different resources are. So even that piece of it is testing the learner. Can they understand this type of environment that we work in?
Yeah. And that's where in the process, we really tried to put some critical thinking into it and not just be spoon feeding them it to where they can very easily get through the process. We want to try to get them some of the information to where like someone that's kind of green and doesn't have a lot of background can be able to get through the process, but we also want them to be able to kind of use their minds to get through the process of it all. And just to kind of go through quickly some of the other sections. So in 201, we're going through second quarter. And the big thing there, so they'll go through the first quarter payroll returns as well as the second quarter payroll returns. They will go through amortization schedules, either creating them in T-value, or we do walk through how to create them in Excel. We go through current portion of the long-term debt entry. So as of April, they're going to be doing that each month as a journal entry. And within the source documents, for instance, for April, we give them the actual purchase agreements for the vehicle and equipment that they're going to do the financing on, where we're giving them a financed amount, a percent interest, and the amount of years that they're going to be doing for those schedules. Then in May, they're going to be dealing with classes. So we go through creating, like turning on classes in QuickBooks, creating the classes. Then we go through using the reclassify transactions tool so that they can mass reclassify all of the January through April data to the repairs division. And then we also go through adding the profit and loss by class report to the management report. So that way, within this process, they're learning a few different things inside of QuickBooks Online that they can be doing for clients that they do run into that's dealing with classes or things like that. 301, we're actually not teaching anything new to them because we're trying to see if they can take everything that they learned in those first 6 months of processing and now be efficient with the processing. So we're trying to see that they can get through financials faster at that point. Kind of like if you had a client that you were taking on, those first couple months, you're learning the client and it's going to take you more time to go through the processing. But when you get to the third, fourth month, you're going to be processing at a faster speed. And then
And
the,
I think about this as being a bit of resource management too. So,
yeah,
can my team members, can they move through enough client data quick enough for us to be able to be profitable, or are they stuck and slow? And so, even this is a tool to be able to understand how much work that employee might be able to handle.
yeah. And then the last section, the 401 section, it's going to go through October, November, December financials. They'll go through year-end closing entries. So PUCC, 2% S health, and a year-end checklist. And they'll wrap it up with 1099s, W-2s, and the year-end quarterly reports. And David, it's funny that you talk about universities not teaching like this. I mean, it's something that like we've really tried looking at putting out there,
Mhm.
because it is something that like if students in the university had something like this where they could be able to go in and go through this process, I think they would be kind of better getting out into the workplace.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And not all in fairness, not all accountants are going to go to work at a firm where they deal with multiple different clients. Maybe they get hired by one particular business and that's all they
Yep.
do, but that is a different type of individual than somebody
Mhm.
who's coming to work for a firm that takes care of multiple clients and processes a lot of information and has different variety of classes, like you were talking about, being able to use the tool in order to really make it sing for the what you need the client's financials to look like. So well done.
Thank you. Uh, yeah, and so I mean that kind of goes through the accounting side, like we talked earlier from the tax side. I'll just go kind of quick on one of these so you can see kind of the idea behind this. It's a similar build out to like the accounting side where they're going to go through, they get sample information that they're going to actually go into your tax software and do the tax return. Um, and within it, we are showing how to efficiently get that return done and trying to make sure that they're not hopping around from place to place in the tax software. Um, so they'll go through the video processes of it all, and then they'll go and do that actual tax return in your software. And they'll take a test based on their tax return data at that point. And I know David was talking earlier, I think, about pricing on that side. So, in terms of our pricing, we have it built out to where it's 1 to 10 active users in the system at $675 a month. That we say active users because you can be able to put a user in, have them go through the course, and you can be able to inactivate them and put someone else in that slot. So while it's 10 active users, you could technically be putting 15 or more in a month, depending on what you're going through. And we really gave that user count just to kind of benefit you guys to be able to use for more users, because the cost that we had put in there was really the cost that it would take in a year to be able to train 1 to 2 new hires. Because when you're thinking about the costs, you're thinking about the cost of that new hire going through it, but also the cost of that manager sitting down and training that person. Um, so that's where we're really trying to take away having that 3 to 4 days talking of the
Right.
manager sitting down with the new hire.
It's just so valuable, right? Even if you're just using one license, if you think about it, having the time, you're right, the time that is being taken away from production to go through step by step to show this stuff, is really, this is just is a lot of firms. By the time you're needing to hire someone, you're already over capacity. So having something that's already pre-made like this that is self-study but allows you to have that oversight is just so incredibly valuable.
Yep. And David, we've been in business for just over 4 years now, live to firms. We built it during COVID out of necessity. It was originally built just for our CPA firm, but there were some other CPA firms that worked with us that were wanting access. And because of them is why we ended up building this out. So we've had it live to firms since 2021. So Liz, Heather, I think that covers my side from the training. I'll go ahead and stop sharing so we can hop back to the slides.
Yeah, of course. And I feel like this is a great time to launch that other poll. We have one more poll that just says, uh, would you like more information? And so, Heather, do you mind launching that additional
Yeah,
poll?
absolutely. Happy to
And
launch.
thank you. And I was just throwing into chat that I feel like I feel like I'm a good trainer. But whenever I have brought on new team members, it's it's not so much about even are you a good trainer? It's are you able to put them to the test quick enough to be able to evaluate are they a good fit before you've both wasted time?
Right.
And I think that, I've even, admittedly so, I have frustrated new hires in the past because they wanted to be able to dive in and they wanted to be able to get their feet wet. And I was like, well, before I let you go play in a live client, I want to be able to know what are your abilities.
Yep.
And so it took a while for me to be able to test that before I wanted to go and turn them over into a live set of books. So, even on the new hires point of view, I feel like this makes it where it's a professional setting. They're able to, if they are competent, they're able to show you really quickly.
Yep.
Let me go. Let me get in the books. Let me start my work.
Yep. Exactly. And I mean, that's the whole reason why we built the sample client environment was, we were running into problems where we would hand live clients to the new hire trainees, and then that manager is having to play basically backup to that, looking over everything a second time to see that everything is written in the right area.
And I think that that's the other thing too, is once you have that new hire working inside of a live set of books, now you already have some indication of the types of mistakes that they might make. Is it like you were talking about depreciation earlier? Okay, well, maybe a junior level accountant hire isn't going to need to have that skill so much. And so maybe that would be the type of a client that you would assign them to. Maybe you have
Mhm.
somebody who's very qualified. So you would shift who you are assigning to those particular new hires based on how they performed during this training period.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close down the poll. I'm gonna give people another, count them down to 5. If you haven't voted, please do so. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I had a quick question for you, Chris. When you sign up for that plan, does that include both the general ledger package and the tax? Is
Yep.
that all in, like any of the modules or the
Yep. So it
program?
gets full access to the system. So you've got
Okay,
access to all the accounting side, all of the tax side, as well as there are pre-employment tests in there too.
that's
Um,
awesome.
so, and the accounting side, tax side, that goes across all softwares. So
I
let's
love
say
that.
you were, yeah, exactly. Because that way, I mean, we've had some firms where they're in a tax software, but they're wanting to look at other tax softwares to potentially jump to, well, we can turn on access for their trainers so they can hop in and see what it looks like to process a tax return in that software.
That's great. I mean, and the other thing, and you may have mentioned this, I am cutting out, and I apologize to everyone for that. My internet is not great where I am. But, if you're looking to, start to transition into a different GL or a different tax software, you now have a training tool that's hands-on and provides real world examples, which is amazing. So, I love that you get the whole suite. That just gives it even more value.
Yeah.
Am I sharing screen again?
Yes.
You are, yes.
Awesome.
Oh, this is
Awesome.
great.
So this is actually one of the things that we didn't go into when I was sharing screen, but some of the reporting that's in there, you have the capability of being able to look at basically a high in the sky view of everybody in your firm that is going through the course and what they've completed, what they are a percent of the way through, and what they haven't started yet. So it gives you kind of the views and the boxes of whether it's blue of not being started, green of completing, or orange of being in the middle of processing.
Love
Wouldn't
that.
it be nice to, maybe hire three individuals at one time and say, okay, based on you three, hires, by the end of this period, we'll pick from the top performer. And so maybe going into it, it would be tempting to say, pay them during this training period, but maybe you weren't going to retain more than one.
Yeah.
Could make
Mhm.
an evaluation very quickly.
And then David was asking about do trainers select what a trainee will be taking versus looking at all the training available? Yeah. So the trainer is able to add the courses that they want the trainee to go through. That the courses are pre-built to go through that process, so you could select the QuickBooks Online or the Zero, or you could technically select them to do both. There is a role in there built for like current staff where, let's say you want them to just see a certain section of the course, you can make them a reviewer role to where they've got that instructor view to be able to hop into a specific section. The only thing I would say there is that from the accounting side, since they're doing 12 months of data, it's a little bit harder for someone to go into the middle of a course unless they're just looking at the videos.
Makes sense.
This right here is reporting from the user side. So it gives you kind of an overview of logins, course completions, their total training time in the system. The courses tab up at the top would give you a view of all the courses that they've taken and what percent of the way through they are. And then some of those other tabs will give you more information. Like the test tab is where I was able to go to see uh, the past tests that they have and what they got right, what they got wrong.
Nice.
And this is that courses tab that I was talking about. So you can see their overall time in each of the courses when they've completed. And you can even click into that progress bar of completed to see how much time they took in each individual subsection of that course.
A lot of information that you can
Mhm.
gather about a new hire very quickly. Uh, I think it's wonderful, and we did the poll. So those who have said yes that you want more information, I would definitely say Chris is a wealth of information and fun to hang out with at the same time. So we've enjoyed our getting to know you, Chris, and Vince as well. So I
Yeah.
would say the people over at My Task LMS are very friendly, very knowledgeable, and ask questions away.
And Julie's asking about the tech stack for the
Yep.
different apps that you do support. So I'm guessing you can find that on the website.
Yeah, the website I think doesn't have every single one because we've updated recently. I can be able to send out that information as well, but just so you
Okay.
know, like I said, Accounting CS, QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, and Zero are the ones from the accounting perspective. The tax perspective is um, CCH Access, Drake, Lacert, Pro Connect, Pro Series, and UltraTax.
You know, Chris, if you wanted to send us something over, we could put that in
Yep,
a newsletter as well.
We
absolutely.
absolutely
And roll
could.
that out to everyone.
Yeah, no, this
Well,
has been fantastic. Great, great
great.
stuff. I always love when you come on, Chris, because it's so exciting because there's nothing else out there like this. So I
Mhm.
just, every time you come on, I'm like, we have more people that haven't been exposed to it. I just get really, really, kind of, giddy about it. So,
Yep.
Well, like many have said, we've needed tools like this in our profession because it is very comprehensive. It does require a lot of critical thinking, and we are siloed in the way that we work. And so it means that we need to have training that replicates that kind of environment. And so well done.
mhm. Yes.
Thank you.
All
Well,
right.
again, say thank you to our partners. And I also want to make an announcement of things that we've got coming up that are very exciting.
They are.
Yeah, this firm spotlight, we're going to be doing something new where we're going to have Bruce on from CPA Business Advisors, and he's going to be talking to us about his firm, so or the firm that he works within. And that's going to be a really cool chance for you to be able to hear some things that they're doing differently. Especially whenever it comes to relationship pricing, as I would say Don would call it. They have a different way that they describe it, but essentially it's taking their services and creating a new pricing model and a new delivery method, and they're getting great feedback from their existing clients. So join us for that, and it will be a Facebook Live. So we will not be doing our normal episode for that event. It's going to be Facebook Live. So you'll see an event that'll be scheduled for that. It's going to be 15 minutes. So it's going to be just this short conversation with Bruce.
And make sure that you follow us on our Facebook page because that's how you'll be able to find it, which most of you already do. And then we've got a couple of really incredible episodes coming on. Liz and I are going back to basics and we're going to start developing some content for you that is our own, which we're really excited about. We've been kind of shining the spotlight on our tech partners and other firms. And so we're going to go back to our early days and create some educational content for over the next couple of weeks. So on August 26th, we're going to be dipping into general ledgers. So trends, changes in the future of accounting. What are we seeing out there? What's different? What's new? We're going to certainly visit some of the tried and true, but we're also going to be dipping into some of the new. And then on September 9th, we're going to be talking AI and apps. So we're going to do an open discussion with you to talk about what are we doing with AI in our firms now, and then what should we be thinking about going forward into the future. And then really exciting, it's not on this slide, but we're going to be focusing on AI a lot in this fall. We're going to be doing something really fun with that. So make sure that you come to these episodes so you can learn more and watch social media that we feel is absolutely needed for accounting professionals right now in this new world of AI.
Lots of goodness. So thank you, Chris, for joining us. Thank you to all of our audience. We love having you here, and we love bringing to you technology that maybe you wouldn't otherwise get a chance to know about. So until next time, take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.